Vanakkam, Namaskaram, and it is always a delight, as I mentioned, to talk to PGuru audience because they give some very good observations and comments in the end of the program. Today we will look at the most hot subject of Sri Lanka, the crisis in Sri Lanka and any implications for India. So the Sri Lankan crisis is not something which has come about on one day or something. It is brewing for quite a number of weeks, if not months actually. Even a couple of years before, many people have indicated that Sri Lanka is slowly getting into a debt trap. In other words, it is highly levered. We will just see what it is. In the very light-hearted way, in the very old times, a maxim used to be there that three L's can spoil any entity: liquor, lady, and leverage. It's not in the form of abuse or anything, but these are the three which can an individual or a family or a company or a government or a country, all three can be a devastating impact on a situation. Everybody knows about liquor, no need to elaborate on it, which has spoiled many families, many an individual, as well as many executives in corporate entities and other things. Women, of course, ladies, most of the wars are conducted by men, but mostly it is for a woman or due to a woman. And, due to women, for instance, some major business families all over the world, including in India, have split because of the differences between the wives of the brothers, not due to any other major reason. Anyhow, third is leverage. Leverage is, what is leverage? Leverage is a financial jargon. Essentially, how much is borrowed money, how much is owned money. This is what is called the leverage. Suppose I own something like 1 lakh rupees, which you can treat it as equity or my own money. And what is my borrowed amount? The borrowed amount is significant. Do I have adequate amount of continuous earning to meet the obligations? Right. Nowadays, of course, people go for EMI and other things. Suppose my EMI is say 50,000 rupees per month, and my income flow is only 40,000. I will not be able to meet the obligation, and so I have to dip in from my past savings. And for a couple of months, it might be possible. After that, I have to find some solution. So whether it is individual, whether it is family, whether it is corporate, whether it is country, how much you have borrowed? Have you borrowed beyond your means, as it is used to be called? Nowadays, borrowing is highly tempting, and the lender who has got surplus funds, he has to earn some interest. So now you find in internet, you find in telephone calls, and many are chasing you in order to borrow. They will say, sir, it is only 5%, it is only 8%, and all type of computations will be told. And some people will not take into account time value of money, and they would just say, sir, your interest cost is only 12% or something, average cost. Actually, if you work it out using time value of money and other thing, it could be as high as 18 to 19%. Anyhow, so this is the type of what hard sell of and so countries also do it. For instance, China is well known. It provides a huge amount of credit-based projects, big projects in many countries, and it is also part of its road and belt initiative, and it has provided huge amount of credit to Pakistan, one of the major borrower. Pakistan's borrowing amount, something like 20 billion is they owe to Chinese, and similarly Sri Lanka and Maldives and Africa, many countries, China has lent, Bangladesh, Nepal, all these countries, and big projects. And it is not free or anything. It's over a period of time you have to repay, and in case of delayed payment or not coming, sometimes the China acquires that project itself. It becomes the owner of it, and in that sense, this Hambantota in Sri Lanka is one of the examples where China have deeply entrenched, and it is also suggested it is some sort of a Chinese territory. Anyhow, be that as it may, and quite a number of places. And now, many of these countries which have borrowed excessively are now finding it very difficult to meet the obligation. One is the COVID impact. For instance, very simple, the COVID has significantly impacted Sri Lanka's tourism. And tourism is one of the major chunk of Sri Lanka's income, actually. And that has been impacted because a large number of people have not been traveling during the last 2 years. I think most of us are aware about it. And so it has impacted. And another thing is, I do not know, whatever the reason, Sri Lanka suddenly went in from chemical fertilizer to natural overnight. It should have been done on a, what one can call phased manner or something. All these experiments should not be attempted on a large scale overnight. And that has significantly impacted their agriculture output. So basically, they are depending on this tourism as a foreign exchange thing. That's one of the major thing. And they import a substantial amount of things which are required even for day-to-day living. And in the context of impact on tourism, in the absence of which the foreign exchange got dwindled. Their ability to meet the interest and principal obligation was also very less. Plus the domestic, they have to pay the salary of the employees, their past dues and other things. All of this put together, if you look at it, their last 2022, their debt to the GDP, or what is called the national income, was more than 100%. They were finding it extremely difficult to meet the obligation. And unfortunately, according to reports, China has not taken any steps to help them or overcome in terms of rescheduling the payment, or sometimes the global organization like IMF and World Bank even convert their loans to grant. It's an extreme situation, but China doesn't seem to have taken any step. India has provided a significant amount of help in terms of both the food grains and in terms of fuel, as well as meeting the financial obligation. Added to this is the issue, Sri Lanka has got a couple of families which control the politics. Just like in India, Congress onwards, if you take, except Communist and BJP in India, and maybe some small parties like AIADMK and other, all other parties are family controlled, and I would call them as unlisted family businesses. And they have enormous amount of clout. In Sri Lanka, same way, this Gotabaya family had so much amount of clout. And they had a couple of brothers in either as president or as prime minister, planning minister, home minister, and various positions. Their children were also parked, and it was felt that some of them were having foreign citizenship, accumulating money abroad and everything. So the family unlisted enterprises begin to have huge amount of accumulated illicit funds all over the place. Even in India, many of the family-owned parties have got a huge amount of funds accumulated. And so what happened is, it's very difficult when the opposition comes to power. They say that they will take action and other things, and the cases drag on, and it is not very easy to prove. But the public knows that these people are accumulated huge amount of funds. Same thing in India. For instance, you might argue, has it been proved in the case of say DMK, or has it been proved in the case of AIADMK, or in the case of SP or JDS and so many other parties? It might not be rigorously proved in a court of law because of so many technical and other issues. But the perception among public is that these people are chores. They have accumulated funds. Sometimes the family parties have accommodation with other family parties. Even when they are in opposition, it is roughly called 70-30 rule or 60-40 rule. That means we are rulers, we will take 60% of the bribe, but we will share it with you 40%. Don't make a huge noise about it. Another. So the probity in public life is at a discount. Same thing has happened. Kotapayas have been one of the major families, not recently, for a long period of time, either as Prime Minister or as President. And the Buddhist, which constitute the largest chunk of the population of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is around 2.2 crore or something. Of that, at least 75% is of the Buddhist follower, Theravada, they call it. Anyhow, there actually, there is a certain amount of Shaivism is also involved in that. The family-based parties, either, they are fanatical towards religion or towards caste or towards language. They have to sustain themselves in some way or other. So they become rabble-rousers. And so the same thing, the Buddhist monks supported the Gotabaya family. And so this economic crisis, people are waiting for fuel for days, 1 day, 2 day, another thing in the petrol pump. They were not able to meet the obligation. I have been to Sri Lanka several times actually. I always used to be shown, you see the beautiful roads, Professor, how lovely. I used to travel from Colombo to Kadargama in order to Kadargama, Turek, Kadarvel, Muruga. That is what is the very famous temple there. I normally visit that too. And the roads are extremely good actually. So my co-passengers who are Sri Lankans, they used to, tell about the thing, and also in a sense sort of tell that in India you don't have these type of roads and other thing. I used to ask, these are all Chinese funded. I used to ask who is going to pay it. They used to say, no, after 10 years it doesn't matter, we will. See, this is the issue. The current benefits you are enjoying without realizing what is the nature of the future issues arising out of this. So this, the waiting for fuel for so long period of time, not having adequate amount of foodstuffs, prices are going up, and there is a extraordinary uncertainty, unemployment is increasing, inflation is rising. So economy has collapsed. I'm not telling it. The Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, now he is no more a Prime Minister. He is also resigned. Vikram Singh, he himself told that Sri Lankan economy has collapsed. And that gave rise to huge amount of anger. You might have seen in the television screen people invading into the presidential palace, and it appears the president himself has run away, Gotabaya, and inside a ship or something. Anyhow, the point is excess amount of borrowing without looking at the future, and family-run enterprises indulging in corruption. This is a cocktail, deadly cocktail, and it has a lesson for political parties in India. Immediately, some people say India is not going to face any such. India as a country, I am telling, because even if our debt level is 70% of our GDP or something, we are very comfortably posed. Even if our forex is around 500 billion, half a trillion, is come down. Doesn't matter. In a sense, our software and related other exports and other thing earns us some 110, 120 billion. Does not come down or anything in the recent past. Second is our remittances. They again constitute something like 100 billion. So its cushion is there. And fortunately, we have a central government and a woman finance minister who is very frugal. I would rather seriously think that women are better finance ministers than men, because they know how to handle the home finances as well as how to handle the country's finances. So very frugal and very, there is no sort of splurging of the funds or anything like that. One. But certain states are in difficulty. Say, recent Reserve Bank thing indicate states like West Bengal, Kerala, and Jharkhand, they have something like more than 40% of the GDP in the form of debt. Now, most of the amount money received by the government is spent on their government employee salary, wages, bonus another thing, incentive schemes another thing, and the interest on the past. A state like Kerala, a couple of years before, roughly 90% of its income used to be spent on these things. There is absolutely no money left. Tamil Nadu, same thing, because large number of freebies are given. Freebie means that free, this is free, that is free, another thing. To the extent the transport department of Tamil Nadu is not able to meet the requirement of its own employees, because now recently they have introduced a scheme of free for women. They can travel in buses without paying any fee. And finally, the crisis is so much, they have decided to privatize the good amount of 25% of the transport buses will be offered to the private sector. So that these type of many of the states could come into huge. Punjab is state, because the debt to GDP, it's state GDP, I mean, as well as the deficit to GDP, both of them are relatively running very high. Punjab, Rajasthan, Bihar, these are some of the states which are. So, but one important point is, in India, the states cannot decide to borrow on its own. And there used to be a demand by the communists in Bengal that state should have also its own bank and Reserve Bank type of thing, and note printing facility, and unfortunately it is a central subject. So states can borrow using RBI. Some states like Kerala attempted some of these masala bonds and this and that and trade. They have not been very successful. The point I want to stress is, some individual states can run into problem. One, for deficit, of course. Second is the family enterprises. Many of the states are run by, or opposition is like your Mulayam Singh Yadav party, Lalu Yadav party, Sheikh Abdullah's party, or the party of the KCR in Andhra Pradesh, or Telangana, or the other YSR in Andhra Pradesh, Karunanidhi and Stalin in Tamil Nadu. All these are family-run enterprises which can meet Gotabaya's nemesis, because they accumulate huge amount of ill-gotten wealth, and in order to preserve that wealth, pass it on, they ask their children also to get into politics, because they cannot, accumulated wealth can't be given over to some outsider who is also a party loyalist or anything. No way. It has to be only within the family. And that man also enters into politics, because if he is not in politics, the new ruling party can initiate action. If he is in politics, he can always say it's a political vendetta and come into some compromise with the ruling party. So the probity in public life is at a discount. And this is also observed by people. Let's be very clear about it. People didn't, the anger of the people accumulated over a period of time made them to go and burn the house, individual premises of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. This has happened in many other countries also. The statues of Stalin were brought down. The statues of Romanian fellow was, it's not something very new. So the alarm bell should be ringing for the these family-run enterprises, that people's anger can be coming out. This is something very, very important. What is the way out for Sri Lanka? One way Sri Lanka can genuinely think about, but it has got a lot of ramification, is to have a long-term contract with India in the trade, commerce, finance, security, and other. It can become, India can provide an umbrella to Sri Lanka in terms of, it's not, it can continue to be a country, thing, but many of these economic and other aspects can be under the Indian regulatory framework. That would be very helpful for Sri Lanka. It can be, again, another state. It's not merging with India, like Sikkim or Goa or something. It's a protectorate, you might call it, in order to overcome this crisis. So whether they would be interested or whether they would be willing, and it's not merging with India or anything. Sooner or later, Pakistan is going to get into the similar type of a problem. It's a massive issue for them, and Nepal is having a major crisis. Maldives is having a major crisis. Other countries in Argentina, Turkey, and other thing are also having same type of borrowed fund versus own. It's like stretching your leg. You can't stretch your leg beyond a point, your pant will be torn, or you will get hurt in the portion of the leg. So, this is what is the most important thing. So, there are two issues. One issue is excessive amount of borrowing without realizing the consequences. Second issue is wrong economic policies in terms of providing freebies to people. Basically, people should be encouraged to earn their dinner table food. That's the pride. That should be the nature of the self-respect. I earn my food, not the government earns my food. Nationalizing families is not a desirable thing at all in terms of providing. The third is family enterprises accumulating ill-gotten wealth. So any project, 100 crore project, at least they would say 15 to 20 crores will be stolen by the family. And that is most not a desirable thing at all. So all the family based parties have to rethink that public is observing us and our houses can also be burnt. It's not something which is impossible or something. It's not something which is only in films. In real life, we saw yesterday what happened in Sri Lanka. So, should listen to the voice and should listen to the alarm bells which have been initiated in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.